Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our investor call. As you will recall, the original purpose of the call was to discuss the first quarter financials, but in the circumstances, given that we have been focusing intensely on the audit process over the past couple of months, particularly the last month, a couple of trips to India to coordinate with our auditor in Delhi, we decided to make it a presentation with a brief analysis of the path to where we are heading. I think that's probably what most of you would like to hear about. Firstly, on the issue of the audit. The audit is really an integral part of our strategy moving forward. And it's all part of the process that you've been hearing about for some time now of uplisting to a recognized exchange, in this case, NASDAQ. And also at the same time to prepare a registration statement for to incorporate the audit for filing with the SEC to become, firstly, to become a reporting company, and secondly, to register shares for an issuance which would be approved, hopefully, by the NASDAQ for listing as part of the process. So I just spent 2 days in New Delhi. The auditor is currently preparing financial statements for 2021, 22, the 2 financial years, to go to the internal review committee. And these should be approved internally within the next, I would say, few weeks. That's something that we don't really have any control over, but most of the work has already been done. And this particular audit firm is extremely experienced in terms of dealing with US listed companies. They have 12 or 15 companies which they are doing audits for under PCAOB standards. And some of those are upgrading to Form 10, and some are looking for listing. So I'm comfortable that we're in good hands on that side. Our lawyers are preparing a registration statement, which will be the cornerstone for the future. Basically, as some of you would be aware, approximately a year ago, we had prepared and filed a registration statement under Reg A, and we'd had issued some shares. That registration statement would incorporate most of the bulk of what we're doing for the S1, which the lawyers are working on at the moment. The draft audited statements will be slotted into the registration statement currently being prepared. Although it's finalized, the audit is not in fact made public until the registration statement is filed with the SEC. In other words, the audit will go in as a draft and will be signed, I guess, the day before the audit is, the registration statement is filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission. The SEC process, the review process, will then determine the timing of the effective date of the registration. And there's no way of knowing. There are certain guidelines and certain timing which would apply to the review and question and answers and so forth. And once reviewed by the SEC, we'll apply for listing in NASDAQ and follow the NASDAQ process and instructions. As you know, we have had some discussions with NASDAQ, and we believe that there is a very good chance that we would be approved for registration for listing on NASDAQ, subject, of course, to the qualitative and quantitative restriction guidelines of NASDAQ listing being met. So that's really the crux of what we wanted to talk about today. What we'd like to do, because it's such an important time in our history, that we'd like to keep informing our shareholders and our constituents on a regular basis as each initiative moves forward. It's all really part of a process, but and as you've been extremely patient waiting for the audit to be completed, as I understand, it's taken a long time and it has been complicated, and there have been intervening issues over which we had no control. But the bottom line is that we are almost there, and I believe that we will be well towards being on the path to being listed by the end of the third quarter of this year. So I think I would like to. I don't think there's much point in discussing the first quarter financials, because a little historic, and I don't think it's that relevant. They're unaudited, and it's all going to be part of the audit process moving forward. So if you do have questions, maybe you could send them to me separately. and we could address them. The purpose of this presentation was really to bring you up to date with where we are on the uplisting and fundraising process. So I would certainly take questions on that, but otherwise, any other comments I'd be happy to respond to as well.
Thank you, Nils. We're actually open for questions. We haven't received any questions so far, so let's give 1 or 2 minutes.
Sure.
Please note that all participants can raise questions.
Yes, be happy to answer any questions about the process or anything that you might want to know about where we are and how long we expect it to take, etc. Hopefully we've covered most of it, but I think this is a very important time in our history, and we want to make sure that everyone is informed to the best extent possible as to what's happening.
And also, everyone, I just want to mention because we haven't received any questions, that anyone can select to type the questions and raise it. Here it is. We have one question. Nils, do you want to answer it?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I think that we have our engine room is Indonesia, and it has always been. And we will, that is the basis of our audited financial statements. However, it's always been the strategy that we have to use the engine room to build the revenue, to expand the platform. We have North America, we have Alaska, and we have Canada, and these 2 deals are secured. Brazil is still on the to-do list. To be quite honest, and the Brazilians understand this, we've been focusing entirely on the fundraising, audit, listing process, because that's critical to being able to raise the capital to deploy in developing all of our assets, including Brazil, should we close on that transaction. So I think the question on the 100,000 inferred and 250,000 measured and indicated, I believe the total is around 100,000 inferred, and I wouldn't want to comment other than that because I don't have the technical details in front of me, but I'll be happy to answer the question separately if you'd like to send an email. How many investors beside Leonide are there? We have another investor, AES Capital, which is a very good friend also out of the East Coast, and they have a small investment in the company, and we are currently in the process of discussions with 2 underwriters for the registration, which will be moving forward, and we will be looking to secure the underwriting within hopefully the next 30 days, and that'll be a key to be able to push the process, fundraising and listing together, and to meet the timetable that we discussed. So we'll be opening up our books to many more institutional investors, obviously, after the NASDAQ listing has taken place. You figure Brookmount will be up on NYSE by September, is that correct? No, I'm not talking about NYSE. We originally had discussed New York Stock Exchange second board, which was formerly the American Stock Exchange. However, we have reconsidered in light of the changes that have taken place in those exchanges over the past couple of years, and we believe NASDAQ would be a very good place for us to be. NASDAQ seemed to agree with that, and we would by September. I'm not going to say that month. My point was I would hope that we would be well down the process by the end of the 3rd quarter. Of course, there are issues that we have no control over. For example, the SEC review process, which is something that only the SEC can control. So, we'd certainly be pushing it as quickly as we could. Will the offering be used to fund the Brazil project and also North America? And how much do you expect the offering to be, for 20 or 30 million, perhaps? We're talking to the underwriter, and I don't want to really give you a number right now, David, but at the end of the day, and I've told everybody this, that our strategy is to deploy the capital where we see the best return. The low-hanging fruit at the moment is in North America. We have low-hanging fruit in Alaska, and we have some 60,000 tons of tailings or ore, I believe, in Yukon, which can be relatively quickly processed for not a lot of money. So that would make sense for us. We'll deploy capital to develop the operations that we can bring on stream at the earliest possible opportunity. The longer term capital would be for much larger projects such as Brazil. Happy to answer any other questions.
I think there's one more question coming up.
It's a good question. We have been dealing with, this is Dean Schaaf. Thank you for the question, Dean. A lot of people have raised this. Are we talking, oh, I'm sorry. No, this is not. This is, I'm sorry, I'll deal with the first question first, which was, are you able to use any proceeds from Indonesia for expansion, or they're still locked in country? Because under the joint venture agreement, originally we signed with Indonesia, yes, the proceeds are used to develop the facility there. However, we have reached agreement, we're in the process of reaching agreement with our joint venture partner that joint venture will be restructured following the completion of the listing, and we are looking to take control of that project completely so that we can deploy the funds used from Indonesia also in other parts of the business. There was a question, as I said, from Dean Schaaf last quarter. You had mentioned holding back, I believe, $2 million of gold. Has the gold been mined already? I think what you're referring to is the selling trajectory of our operation in Indonesia. Generally, our buyers who've been dealing with us for many years will approach us, and as we do production, we will sell to them. However, sometimes when we think that there is a strong possibility that the gold price will increase in a short period of time, then we will defer sales, but rarely, very rarely, to be honest, because we look to bring in funding, or to bring in cash flow from the sales, you know, as and when the production, generally, as and when the production is completed.
I think we answered all the questions. Yes,
I don't see any other questions.
Yes, there are no more questions. So thank you very much for attending. Nils.
Yes, thank
you.
you all for your attention and interest and support for the company. We'd like, as I said earlier, we'd like to keep you informed on a more regular basis. And I would hope that within the next few weeks, we will schedule another conference in the next few weeks. I won't give a precise date, but we will certainly do that in the next 7 to 10 days to lock in a date for the next conference to update you with the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, everyone.